suggestively permitted to drink alcohol between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. Now, on weekends and public holidays, there's a stretch and a leeway from midday all the way to midnight. Let me start with Andrew Kagwa. How does this affect you? Should it become a reality?
Well, if I'm to speak as a Ugandan, because we are Ugandans, it won't, because most of the things do not really operate. They will be passed, and for some reason they won't implement them. But then on the legal side of it and everything, one, you cannot restrict when people are going to have recreation. Like, of course, I know there are markets and there are countries where there are restrictions on when bars open, but even in those countries, no one restricts when you can actually buy a beer. You can still go and buy a beer over the counter early in the morning, because that's when you want to take your beer. And let's not forget, not every Ugandan works during the day and rests at night. There are some people that are working at night, and right now they are resting. Right now they will walk into a place and try to actually purchase a beer. So, like, when you think about it from that angle, it's poorly thought after, and well, I don't want to say we are idle, but we are a bit idle, more so from the group that's trying to pass this. And
these are the MPs that you're referring to, that this they need to be given other things to do.
Oh yes.
Okay. All right. There's quite a number of people who have been having the same argument that you know what, maybe these honourable members of Parliament have nothing else to do. But you bring out something that is very, very, straight out. The importance of consultations, data as well as statistics to inform the desire to go in a certain direction and make a certain decision, which brings in Dr. Rwanda here. In terms of data, statistics, consultations, before this bill was ever even voiced on the floor of Parliament through the Honourable Sarah Opendi, had you had a roundtable discussion as Manufacturers Association and given your inputs and your views towards it?
Yeah, thank you very much. Before we just get into the data is speaking to what? Data is speaking to a phenomenon that you track for some time, and then you look at that behavior and you record it, and then that creates data. So before we start to look at the data that we are discussing, let's first pose a question here. When did our society start to use alcohol? Before it stretches as far as back as humanity. Then, when these people die, that are dying because of alcohol, where are they buried in our society? So to begin with, we need to see how is it trending. You see, in any society, once something is bad, you don't have to use a legislation to say it's bad. For them, they know. Every community has got its social systems and mechanism of detecting what is good and what is bad, and they will always resist what is not good. Now, most of all the ceremonies, actually not most, all the ceremonies in our society, I want to be very clear, because other societies also use alcohol, but for their justification I may not know. In our society, alcohol, you cannot demonize it. That is a fact before we look into the data. Second fact is that it is part and parcel of social fabrics of our society. We, at every function, it is always there. It's a mobilization even. It is something that brings people together. You don't joke. And that's why when I was discussing with some parliamentarians, I was like, but what if we ruled it out and you went to do your campaigns? Tell me of an alternative thing that you will put there and you mobilize your people. Now, we come now to the so-called statistics. Where is it coming from? Because I don't want us to blame parliamentarians as if they woke up from nowhere. There is a claim that a study was done by World Health Organization that Uganda is leading in the consumption of alcohol. Then that is what created the turnaround, and the leaders thought that it is necessary now to come out and control the consumption of alcohol. Now, I want to first interrogate those facts that the research brought. First of all, that research was triggered by who and whose interest? Is there,
when you talk about that,
yes,
then we make comparison with our neighbors Kenya, who already have a similar bill running for them, them being higher consumers of alcohol than we are, and it begs the question, how do you then state that Uganda is leading in alcohol consumption?
Yes. Now, that research was done. Thank you very much. In Uganda, we have got national apparatus that validates research. And we are proposing to parliamentarians, what if we hold a bit, consult with this national apparatus for validation of research? We have got our research policy center, the Economic Policy Research Center, well funded by the government. What is their take? Before we use research or the data to quickly run into action, we have got National Research Council. What if we consulted to see the methodology was, how good was the methodology? How appropriate was it? These are some of the things that we are questioning in respect to the data that became a basis to take this action. And we are asking another question. If it is true that actually alcohol is causing all this death, where are these people buried? Number two, we have put it to the attention of URSB. When people die, there is a death certificate. Are you sure we have all these death certificates? Can we validate and compare these two statistics? Now, there we are trying to interrogate where the data came from, or the research that informed this kind of policy move. Now, we don't want to blame parliamentarians as if they are not well researched, they are not good. They have a full apparatus for research as parliament. So we are simply saying, could you do much better? Could we get interested a little bit in detail in respect to that? Now, I will come to now the alcohol in itself, in respect to what problem are we solving. It's public knowledge that we have got alcohol abuse. But if we want to analyze from that only one angle of the abuse, then we might lose the bigger picture. Everything I want to state here on a national TV, anything consumed in excess, logic has it that it has adverse.
Be it milk,
be it anything.
Chocolate, yes.
Number two, anything is susceptible to being misused.
Yes.
Every day I arrived here with a car. If I drive this car badly, I will cause accident and I may not survive. Must we go and shut all the industries?
Actually, when you speak of that, I remember post-COVID-19, I believe, because they had seen how people were quite organized with the whole curfew restrictions. So they were saying that at one point, Masaka was having quite many accidents. And so there was a suggestion that perhaps we should have curfew on when cars should travel so as to control accidents on roads.
So, we're asking, We are going to close factories because they produce alcohol. We are going to close cars, factories that make cars because they cause accidents. We are going to close factories that make guns because guns can be misused and kill people. Just one bomb can erase the whole of Kampala. So what do? We don't stop manufacturing. We don't bring things that hinder progressive manufacturing, but we only have to control the other end of the users. Now, we have got, at one time there is a country when there was the AIDS scourge, that let's kill all the people that have AIDS because they are most likely going to infect others. This is why what we are saying. When we are regulating behavior issues, you want to be detailed to the behavior, the patterns, dimensions, and manifestations of the behavior, other than looking at the entire chain. Now, the challenge we have with this bill is that it is looking at alcohol control, and it runs from manufacturing up to the consumption.
So they want to run control from manufacturing to consumption.
That is where they are getting it wrong.
Okay.
Now, we are saying the entry point to consumption and reducing abuse and reducing adverse effects is when we target the behavior of the consumers and we bring to them right information. And when no one disputes the fact that alcohol consumption has adverse effects, we are on that angle moving together. But what we are trying to say, please use big lenses. Don't mimic your analysis to just the adverse effects. Alcohol is a global product.
Okay.
And right now, when you put on what I call the wide lenses or the long perspective lenses, alcohol is at the center of global competitiveness. Right now, Africa is the target market for global trade. Now, if Africa is the global trade, who and alcohol has been selling in Africa, whose alcohol has it been? And that poses a question, why is it that the regulation is coming out now? These are something we are trying to bring to the analysis. Why now? Is it that people haven't been drinking? Or is it because there is a UN data? Really?
Okay.
Didn't these people know that drinking has been on?
Thank you so much, Dr. Rwanda. And we are joined by Jackie, who's also going to be very vocal in this regard. She is the Secretary General with the Uganda Alcohol Industry Association. And they've been at the forefront since this bill was presented in Parliament. So after so many months of back and forth, Jackie, let me first start by you taking us aback in regards to what you presented as your opposition of this alcohol control bill at that time, and between then and now, has there been any realignment so that these honorable members of Parliament can re-understand exactly what they were trying to advocate for in the beginning?
Okay, thank you so much for having me, and good morning, viewers. So yeah, we've been at the forefront for the longest time, I must say. We had initial stakeholder engagement and consultation with the proposer of the bill, who is Honorable Sarah Pendi. We shared our issues at the time. That time actually it was still being drafted, and so we thought that our views would be incorporated. So we were surprised to see that when she tabled the bill for the first reading, more or less none of our views had been incorporated.
And these views having been?
Our views, number one, we were asking that the entire sector should be regulated, because we looked at the bill and it kind of was targeting the already formalized sector. And yet the biggest problem for us is on the illicit alcohol, which was not touched at all in the bill. And so we were wondering what the main agenda for this bill is, what the objective is, because the biggest problem was on illicit. Number two, we also made proposals on working hours, and we were shocked to see that there are even more restrictions that are coming in the new proposal. Bars to close at 10, start opening at 5 on weekdays, which is a little bit of a challenge to our people and to the bars and to the people who are involved in the entire value chain generally. So we also had sticky issues around packaging, like the proposal even currently is requires us to kind of overhaul our packaging process more or less, and work with the new requirement of packaging in milliliters that are less than 500. More than 500 on, so it becomes a bit difficult for us to understand the main objective of this bill, because if you're asking us to package our alcohol in containers that are, above 500, that means you're going to encourage